What the actual fuck was that? I was going to do a review of Pixels today, but this takes priority. For those of you not in the know, Fantastic Four is the latest Marvel comic book adaptation to release under the 20th Century Fox banner, meaning it is not related to the multi-movie cinematic universe. But wait, you say, didn't Fox already distribute 2 Fantastic Four movies back in the mid-2000s? What? No, not at all. Fox replies as it subtly brushes those 2 regrettable mistakes under the rug of continuity and then sets said rug on fire. No, we only made this one in 2015. This one's really good. Forget about those other 2 that didn't exist. Now, while it's true that the original Fantastic Four movies were, for lack of a better phrase, pungent dog shit, there's no denying that reboots are getting old fast. Yes, arguably, if you wanted to bring this franchise back to the big screen, this needed rebooted way more than other movies, since no one in their right mind would have seen a third Fantastic Four movie, and you couldn't really have gotten the same cast considering one of the key roles was played by Chris Evans, who now stars in better Marvel movies. So here, fair enough, a reboot makes sense. After all, it couldn't be worse than those other 2 films, right guys? Right? Oh, yes it fucking can! This crap makes Rise of the Silver Surfer look like sodding Casablanca. I mean, holy shit. And here I was quite excited when I got the chance to go to an early screening of the movie. I knew Josh Trank was going to be directing and absolutely adored what he did with the much underrated Chronicle. Add to that, I'm quite a fan of some of the cast. In particular, Michael B. Jordan, who is just stellar in whatever he does, even if the quality of the movie ain't great. Needless to say, I was slightly optimistic going in, but when this movie's credits rolled, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I was lost for words, completely taken aback. I was actually in awe of how bad the film was. It's the worst movie I've seen in all of 2015, and one of the worst I've seen in a long time. And there is one crucial way in which it fundamentally fails. This movie has no middle. I'm not joking. That isn't an exaggeration in the slightest. There's no second act. When the film ended, I thought for a moment that I must have dozed off and missed an hour somehow and not noticed, but I hadn't. I was genuinely confused. I sat there, like many others, watching the credits, and I don't think a single one of us was there waiting for the non-existent post-credit sequence. We were just looking for the rest of the movie. It was like experiencing memory loss. So if you want a cinematic experience that makes you feel like a coma patient who's just woken up and has no idea what's going on and why suddenly everything's resolved, then this is the movie for you. Me, however, it didn't do anything for. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I actually like things to have a middle. You know, sandwiches, people, Malcolms, fucking movies. Let me just break down the actual plot for you real quick. Yes, it'll contain spoilers, but trust me when I say this movie spoils itself by existing. And where possible, I'll try to keep it to a minimum. So the film starts off a little generic, but somewhat promising. We're introduced to Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, who become childhood friends and immediately start working on a teleporter. Because, if media has taught us anything, that's what kids with glasses do. Eventually they grow up and years later are demonstrating their teleporter at a science fair. Because if there's an overly smart youth in a piece of media, you can bet your ass they're going to a science fair. Anyway, after an impressive performance here, they are scouted by Sue and Franklin Storm, who give Reed a full scholarship at Franklin's Baxter Building, a military-like laboratory for attractive young smart people. They don't take Ben because, well, I don't know, they just don't take Ben. Yeah, the experiment was more Reed's work, but they don't know that, so I guess they don't for plot reasons or something. Anyway, before we get to the Baxter Building, we get quick introductions to Johnny Storm, who's totally cool because he's in a drag race, and we also meet Victor Von Doom, who's totally edgy because he says he doesn't like people. The 2 are then roped by Franklin to helping the rest of the main cast replicate Reed's teleporter, so they all end up at the Baxter Building. At this point, I hope you really like these lab military-like environments you see here, because aside from about 10 total minutes in another dimension, this is where you'll spend the rest of the movie. While here, we get some character development. Victor Von Doom is an angry little emo wanker, probably due to the fact that his parents called him Victor Von Doom, and Amazon hasn't dispatched that Linkin Park CD he ordered. Reed continues to be smart, Johnny continues to be cool, Ben continues to be not present, and Sue continues to be sciencey. Everyone's a trope to almost painful extents. The movie almost beats you over the head with the idea that they're super duper smart kids, guys. There's an early scene, for example, where Reed asks Sue if she likes music, and she starts explaining the science of it all, about how she specialises in pattern recognition, and that music is just another form of science in that sense, because it's all about pattern recognition, and what utter bollocks. That's like if you studied geography and would only talk about the structural integrity of everything your feet touched. Or if, like, assuming that just because I studied film at one point, I'll meticulously deconstruct every movie I see. Actually, wait, that's a bad example, but it is still stupid. So for the next half hour or so, nothing offensive happens, as all the cast just kind of make the machine and doss about. There's a little bit of friction between the team as Victor Von Doom wants some Victor Von Poon, displaying some clear affections for Sue, who seems instead to hit it off with Reed. But other than that, everything just kind of goes swimmingly. They make the machine, and Victor, Ben and Reed all get mortal, and Victor suddenly gans, "Yeah mates, I reckon we should be the first to gan to that other dimension like." So Reed calls up Ben and says, "Yeah, we're gan to this other dimension like for the shits and giggles. You fancy a trip out with the boys?" Ben's all like, "Right." And suddenly, he's back in the movie. They travel to the other dimension and get into some accident with this green energy stuff that causes them to get all the powers they're famous for. Doom is left behind, presumed dead, and Sue is hit with a teleporter blast on their way back, giving her powers. What follows next is actually pretty interesting. It's taken an hour to get us this far, but the movie begins to, start. The characters all have a genuinely frightening wake-up scene. Reed Richards in particular wakes up in a lab, shirtless and battered, limbs stretched out. It's a great use of practical effects, and when he escapes by crawling through the vent, his stomach stretched out behind him makes for some pretty chilling body horror. Anyway, Reed fucks off, and we time skip 1 year later when the rest of the team are still staying at this military lab setting where they are being weaponized. We get a quick glimpse of their powers, and we're told through dialogue they all pretty much hate Reed now since he sodded off without helping any of them. Ben is particularly hurt by this since Reed was his best friend and he can't believe he abandoned him. I mean, it's not like he did the same thing just 40 minutes prior in the movie when he got offered a scholarship and didn't even suggest that they give Ben one too. Anyway, Franklin decides he wants to cure the kids before they get used for military purposes, so he has Sue locate Reed to help them, which she does, superbly easily. Don't know why he didn't think to do this any time prior in the past year, but hey, thinking about this movie too much will probably give you an aneurysm, so let's not do that. Reed comes back, fixes the teleport machine because apparently the other planet that gave them powers will probably also be a key to the cure. Don't know what makes them come to that conclusion particularly, but hey, what did I say about thinking too much with this one? They get some guys to go back to the other planet and look, Victor's still kicking about, but he's Dr. Doom now and looks all metal and shit as his protective suit is fused with his body. They bring him back and he proceeds to fuck shit up. And holy crap, this movie is starting to really get going. We have a villain now. And he's pretty good. He's kind of sympathetic since he was abandoned to his death and doesn't want to be used as a military weapon. And he's violent. Like, really violent. For a 12, he's blown up innocent people's heads in graphic fashion. This guy's scary and a legitimate threat. So all's good. Our heroes have their powers. The movie can properly begin now. And that's when it hits you. Doom opens up a black hole while going back to the other planet. And you're like, wait. That sounds very final act-ish. We see shots of Earth starting to be sucked in, wanton damage on a large scale, and then you're sitting there thinking, this looks very final act-ish. You check the time and think, and this is the time for a final act? No, surely not. But oh, it is. They beat Doom, and the movie ends. 5 minutes after the villain is introduced as the prime antagonist, he is immediately dealt with. All the internal strife in the team, everyone hating Reed, 3 out of the 4 of the team never having been used their powers in a combat setting, all forgotten about. The film just stops, like in a grinding halt. You're left there blinking in astonishment, wondering if you've just been in a car crash. What happened, you plead out? Where's the rest of the movie? It's literally 90% build-up and then a sudden, unsatisfying conclusion. It's the cinematic equivalent of blue balls. Surely Doom has to win one fight. Like, would it not have made more narrative sense to have them lose due to not being able to work as a team, go away to lick their wounds, have their character arcs where they come together as friends and allies and come back stronger to take the win? What was even the point of the internal strife if all the characters just forget about it? This movie was written by 3 people. 3! You'd think one of them would have got to the end and went, yeah lads, we seem to be missing something here. Say what you will about the mid-2000s movies, but at least they have the decency to follow the basic narrative structure of having a beginning, middle and end. This thing is almost entirely taken up by its first act, and the conclusion comes in such an anticlimactic and sudden manner that it undoes any good it ever had. It doesn't matter that it explored a somewhat interesting change of making the team younger and more naive than they are usually depicted. It doesn't matter that it gave us an intriguing dynamic where Victor starts as part of the team and even to an extent is depicted as a friend before he resurfaces as the big bad. It doesn't matter that there were occasional good chemistry between the cast, or a legitimately intimidating villain, or anything good in the movie whatsoever. The final 10 minutes retcons all that salvageable. If you think I'm overreacting, think of it this way. Imagine you're on a first date and things are going really well. You're gelling together, the meal is wonderful, you share loads of common interests. And then suddenly, in the last 5 minutes of the evening, the date in question just drops into the equation that they enjoy casually molesting the anuses of sheep. That moment would be so bad that you wouldn't care how well the first part of the evening went. This movie is like that. That's not even mentioning how shoddy the CG and dialogue is at times, because it's not even worth bringing up since they just seem like trivialities compared to this hideous gaping flaw. The film even then has the audacity in its closing moments to pull that whole "we need a team name" cheesiness, where all of the characters laugh along with the fun suggestion of the Fantastic Four. Fuck this movie. The only good thing to come out of this movie is that Fox will probably end up just negotiating the rights back to Kevin Feige when it flops. I mean, the film has to outright lie just to get your arse in the seat, since the trailers heavily feature stuff not featured in the final product. You were telling me they cut stuff out of this movie in favour of what was left in? Christ on a bike, man. Honestly, the entire thing could have been saved just by condensing the first 50 minutes into 10 and giving the remaining 40 to have a sodding middle. I know I'm really hammering in the point, but I can't clarify how bad a flaw this is, because when the ending comes, it just stops. That's like if I just stopped this review mid